Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron. I hope you're having a great day or night in Jesus. Unconditional Eternal Security, Is It Scriptural by Steve Waldron. Pick it up, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. But we're going through it here, kind of paragraph by paragraph, because I really enjoyed the discussion that some of you put in the comment section, even though we limit it to 2 sentences or less. A lot of misuse there. And so let's just get started. I think a lot of you may be like me. You're kind of raised in that tradition. But the Bible, if you just read the Bible honestly and transparently, you'll find that it's just not there. But let's get started. So we're on page 3 here, chapter 2, and it's talking about Romans 13. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Okay? Verse 2. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power. Now this is an epistle written to Christians. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. So this is saved church people who resist government power unjustly, not in Acts 4 and all this. They go to hell. They receive damnation. Shall receive to themselves damnation. They go to hell. They are eternally anathema. Okay? So, pretty irrefutable contextually that that's what it's talking about. It's to save people. I've had many people try to explain it on here before we did the 2 sentence rule and all this, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's obvious that it's well-meaning people. It's people that have determined a particular doctrine is true, and unfortunately in so many ways will twist scripture to say it's not, and people get so upset. Well, I'll just quit watching the channel. Well, I mean, if it can't take the light of day, then you may not have anything there. You see? So let's read what I wrote here in the book. For the sake of examining UES, which is Unconditional Eternal Security, verse 2 is most pertinent. It says, people who resist the power of lawful government shall receive to themselves damnation, eternal punishment, eternal separation from God. This seems rather straightforward. It really is. We have to remember that Romans is an epistle. Epistles are written to save people, ones who are already Christians. So these are people currently saved, and when they resist the government, they become lost. End of story. Or is it? Now, let me just say this. People who are unsaved already receive to themselves damnation. They're already under the judgments of God. They're under the condemnation of God. Read John 3. I mean, they are. So it can't be, oh, well, they were lost, and then they resisted unjustly, and then they got to themselves damnation. No, they're under the condemnation has come into the world. They're under the condemnation of the world. You know, they're already there in damnation. So the pushback I've received on this, and the other big 4 passages we're looking at currently, is to immediately go to the Lexicons. This is usually defensive, one who does not have an argument. The greatest biblical linguist of the past 1,400 years made a mistake, King James Version. Yeah, that's it, they would contend. But proper use of the lexicons, taking the words in context, show there's no mistranslations here. It reads as it's supposed to read. The only other translation you can have is condemnation. Get to themselves condemnation, and then people say in context like this, condemnation is synonymous with damnation. They mean the same thing. All right, in context like this, not in every context possibly. Next comes an attempt to twist the context of the passage, but the basics remain. This is written to save people. Lost people already have damnation on them according to Jesus. They are lost. All of us were at one point in time. Then Jesus saves us. So this is clearly teaching that Christians can lose their salvation. Clearly. If you go past the scripture to the verses beyond, there's no help for this doctrine, UES. Lexicons can't save you. Twisting the context can't help you. Lost people are lost. They're not going to receive to themselves damnation. They're already living in that state. Without salvation, it will become eternal. So this passage, plainly and obviously interpreted in context, teaches a Christian can lose their salvation. They are currently saved, then they are not. We're not talking about pulling them out of heaven, but their current state on earth. Let's go on the next one of the big 4, found also in Romans. We won't go into Matthew 18. So here again, it's next chapter over in Romans. We have already seen one very obvious passage that clearly teaches a person can lose their salvation. Is there another one? Romans 14:23, written to Christians. And he that doubteth is damned if he eat. If it's talking to lost people, they're already damned. It's talking about Christian people. If you eat doubting, you're damned if he eat, because he eateth not of faith. For whatsoever is not of faith is sin. So the Christian eats against his conscience. He eats. It's not of faith. It's sin. And he that doubteth is damned if he eat. It's irrefutable. There is no way around this. Let's read another paragraph here. The context of this verse is deciding doubtful things for Christians and how to live in Christian unity. Again, as was chapter 13, in all of the epistles, it is written to Christians. And this is very clear from the context. It is speaking of meats. Some feel this has to do with Old Testament dietary laws. Others think that it's referring to a group mentioned in the early Christian writings that thought Christians, when saved, went back to an Edenic state. And since they were vegetarians before the fall, and quite possibly all the way to the flood, these people would not eat meat. Paul was saying these are minor issues. Everyone should just get along. What day of the week to worship fell in this category as well. What is clear is that this passage, this entire chapter, but the whole book of Romans, is to Christians. And we're going to finish this up at a future point, God willing, going a little bit further into Romans 14:23. So Romans 13:1 and 2, irrefutable. Romans 14:23 is as well. So let's let the Bible shape our theology instead of having a theology and try to shape the Bible into that. God bless. We love you. Thanks for being here. Check out our other videos. Subscribe. Hit the bell notification. God bless. Bye-bye.